everyone, and welcome to Chapter 6. Today we're going to talk about how do we support networks, network protocols, network services. As always, I like to talk about prerequisite. Again, given that the A plus examination is very technical in nature, you do want to come into this course with some level of foundational understanding. Now, what I tried to do also is through the videos, if you don't, if you don't have these foundational concepts, I do try to explain it to you in the videos, basically from a layman's point of view. However, the more knowledge you have coming into this course and preparing for the examination is going to really help you as you learn these concepts. So I'll just cover them. Basically, you want to have an understanding of foundational or fundamental networking concepts such as IP addresses, subnets, and networking concepts, topologies, as I like to say. You have to understand and have the ability to navigate and configure both Windows, Unix, and Linux operating systems. You have to be familiar with key networking protocols, including HTTP, FTP, SMB, and NetBIOS. You have to be experienced in setting up and managing file and network, really print servers, using web servers and mail servers. Knowledge of server software installation, configuration, and maintenance. The ability to implement and manage security protocols like HTTPS, SSL, TLS. Skills in diagnosing and resolving network connectivity issues such as wired and wireless. You have to be experienced in setting up and managing remote terminal access using protocols like SSH and RDP. You have to be proficient in using or managing and understanding monitoring tools to help track performance and identify issues. So again, it's helpful to have these concepts or be familiar with them, understanding how to do it before, again, coming into this course, as well as prepping for the exam. However, I try to do a good job, I think, at least giving you the basics through the videos, through the training I'm providing. I'm also offering coaching if need be to help you get through some of these sessions, as well as taking the practice exam. The practice exam is probably key because that'll really help you look at the answers when you get it wrong and also help you consume. Again, people learn differently, as I like to say in all my chapters. Some learn by visual, some learn by reading, and I forgot to include, I also overall will have an ebook that cover all these concepts as it relates to the A plus security certification. With that said, let's get into it. So I'm going to try to summarize services provided by the network. I'm going to compare internet and embedded appliances. And I'm going to talk about troubleshooting networking and how to troubleshoot basic foundational items. So let's kind of get into the next one. So in this course, we're going to cover critical network services that support efficient network operations. We'll explore the services provided by the network host. We're going to compare the internet and embedded appliances, and we're going to walk through troubleshooting networking issues. Each section is designed to provide a comprehensive understanding of these essential network functions. Even though I said comprehensive, again, given that it's geared toward exam concepts, it is going to be high level with some comprehension of understanding, but the details of saying you could walk away and be able to put this into practice is going to take some time. Again, but understanding the concepts, the foundations, getting the certification is allowing you to be on a well journey start into the field of cybersecurity or network operations. So let me get into summarizing these services. So let's talk about the services I'm talking about. So network hosts provide various services to support communication and resource sharing. That's kind of the kind of headline I should like to say. These include file and print servers, web servers, mail servers, as well as directory servers. They manage protocols like HTTP, FTP, SMB, as well as NetBIOS. The goal really is to ensure efficient data transfer, authentication, remote access, network monitoring, to maintain operational performance, or really optimal network performance from here. So let's look at a file and print server. Again, most of this is definition driven, but it does is important. So a file print server manages and shares files and printers across a network. It centralizes resources, making them accessible to multiple users, ensuring efficient data handling, and going to reduce the need for individual printers and storage. When we talk about SMB, which is server message block, the SMB is a network protocol used for sharing access to files, printers, and other network resources. It allows these applications and users to read and write to these files and request services from the server program within a network. When we talk about the net BIOS, which is basically your network basic input and output system, your net BIOS provides services related to the session layer of the OSI model, allowing for applications on different networks, different computers, to communicate over a local area network, which I have here as a LAN. It manages data transfer and network resources efficiently. File Transfer Protocol, FTP. I also like to say SFTP because that's a more secure protocol. FTP is a standard network protocol used to transfer files between a client and a server on a computer network. It supports both uploading and downloading of files and ensuring secure and reliable data transmission. But again, for it to be secure, it is SFTP. FTP was the protocol that we started out with, but again, it was determined that protocol was prone to hacking, spoofing, etc. So you want to make sure you're using an SFTP protocol for secure file transfer. When we look at web servers, so web servers are critical for the hosting of a website and web application. Think of GoDaddy, think of anything. It's really where you're going to host your information and people are going to interact with you. So they process incoming networking requests over HTTP and server web content to users. Again, HTTPS is probably where you want to be, especially if you're doing e-commerce or any payment applications. Web servers ensure that the web pages are accessible, reliable, and they deliver content efficiently to the browser. Next, we'll move on to HTTP, which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Again, the S is going to be Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. So HTTP is the foundation of data communication of the world on the World Wide Web. It defines how messages are formatted and transmitted and how web servers and browsers should respond to various commands. The HTTP enables the retrieving, fetching of resources such as HTML documents, images, and videos. But it's really that protocol in that area where it's going to go out and interact and provide information to your users. So here you'll see I have the client, I have a web server, and I have the database. Just giving you kind of an example of how that works. Now, I mentioned HTML. So HTML is a hypertext markup language. HTML is a standard language that is used to create web pages. It structures web content, allowing browsers to display text, images, forms, and other elements. The HTML forms are essential for web application, enabling users interaction and data submission. Nowadays, there's plugins, there's different ways to create your web pages, so you don't have to worry about HTML anymore. Earlier on in the days, my coding days, I had to know HTML, how to structure a web page, and even to this day, it's still helpful to know if you want to do more things with your web pages that may be a GUI interface, a plugin, or API, or something like that won't provide. Web server development. So web server development really involves creating and configuring web servers to host websites and applications. This includes setting up a server software, optimizing performance, ensuring security, development practices focus on delivering a robust, scalable web hosting environment. Again, definition is important to know. So let's look at hypertext transfer protocol. I mentioned HTTPS. And so HTTPS is an extension of HTTP. It adds a layer of security using SSL and TLS. Basically, it's going to encrypt data in exchange between the web server and the browser. It's going to ensure the confidentiality of the data and the integrity. The HTTPS is essential for protecting sensitive data, information, and maintaining a user's trust on a website. Again, I mentioned e-commerce sites, anywhere where you have to provide information. You want to make sure that you're seeing HTTPS as a URL, because without that, and you just see HTTP, data sent across the internet is in plain text. That means anybody could see it, any tool that they have, they're able to see that. So again, I use an example here, username and password. So again, if you are sending to your bank your username and password, you're sending that in plain text, basically a threat actor, what we like to say in the industry, will be able to see that. They'll be able to grab that information, see that what you're using, and be able now to duplicate it from there. However, if you're using HTTPS, the data is sent across, the data is encrypted. The information, if someone was to grab it, would look basically like, I like to use the word with my kids, goobly glop. So basically what you're looking at here will just be, this is how it look. However, through HTTP, this is what it will look like. So again, try to give you the illustration of the difference. So now let's move on to mail servers. So the mail servers handle the sending and receiving and storage of emails within a network. They manage email communication. They're assuring messages are delivered efficiently and securely between the users. Common protocols used by mail servers include what we like. SMTP is the primary, IMAP, and POP3. So again, these mail servers store users' basically mailbox information, and they manage how the email is distributed. They provide access to stored emails, including and enabling users to read, organize, and respond to messages. Mailbox servers also handle tasks like indexing the emails and supporting search functionality. So again, I use some examples here of showing Outlook comes in, the data is sent, your SFTP server, what it's doing, it's storing it, and how the IMP POP server is fetching it, etc. Same thing, I use an example here of Gmail, what's happening from that perspective. Again, make sure you're just familiar with that from an exam prep perspective. Now let's talk about directory and authentication services. So your directory and authentication services manage users' identity as well as control access to network resources. They're going to store users' credentials, they're going to verify the login, and they're going to enforce security policies. These servers ensure that only the authorized user can access sensitive data and applications. So again, if you think about it, from anything that you sign in, you first have to go and create a password. That information is now encrypted and stored in a database, basically. So when you sign in to your bank or to anything else, it's going to first say is, oh, Paul is trying to sign in. Here's his credentials. Here's the password he set up. Now provide him access into a feature or function that he's authorized to see within the database. That's really a directory authentication service. Now, we're adding more to that because it's not enough just to say, Paul has signed in, he's provided me his user ID and password, but what if Paul is not Paul? So now we are going to get into multi-factor authentication. How could we identify Paul in other ways? Does Paul have something physical, like a phone or a token or something, that if I send something to Paul, only Paul would have that, and then Paul would have to put that code back into the system or device before he or she could sign back in. So again, I'm kind of going a little bit off track, but multi-factor authentication is something that, as a security professional, you want to make sure you're encouraging your client, yourselves to use consistently, because there's such thing called brute force password break-in. So basically, there's software, I have it, people get it, that you could just keep brute forcing. All it's doing is guessing password, random forcing, and it goes through it, and eventually, given time and effort, it will basically break through and guess a password. But it's very challenging to guess a code that was sent to someone on a device that they should have. So again, just a little bit more than what I wanted to cover, but sometimes I'll get into topics and I'll kind of resonate that into real world examples that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. Now let's move on to remote terminal access. Remote terminal access allows users to connect to a network computer from a remote location. That's really what it is, using protocols like SSH or RDP. Users can manage and operate distant systems as they're physically present. These facilitate remote administration and support. Again, same concept applies if you're using SSH and RDP. RDP has been known to be an attack area where threat actors can come in, because RDP allows you to look like you're publicly accessed on the internet. So you have a public IP, and people are able to RDP into your system, etc. So again, use that with caution. I've seen scenarios in my day-to-day career where RDP was used along with port forwarding, so it's a combination of different things. But people do that and then not they literally allow, but a threat actor has been able to gain access to their environment. So I'll be very cautious using RDP as well as port forwarding in combination, but just again, things that I've seen from a breach perspective. So let's look at network monitoring services. So network monitoring services really track and analyze your network performance. This is important. It's really going to assure your optimal performance. I don't know if you ever heard, there's some things called DOS, denial of services, or different things, but they really look and they're going to collect data on the traffic, and they're going to detect issues. And then they'll provide alerts to you or your administrator for particular problems or potential problems you may have. This is more of a proactive monitoring that's going to help maintain network reliability. A lot of times, sometimes let's say a major news event, and I remember in the past, like CNN would get over, they would say our servers couldn't take the traffic. Again, that means it's people are just hitting that server, and a server has a certain amount of memory, a certain amount of hardware on it that allows it to consume a certain amount of information. So you have to make sure you set your network up correctly that allows to what I call failover. Again, I won't get into all that for what this course is, but I always like to, again, bring up a little bit more for you to, as you continue on your journey, to remember some of these concepts I'm talking about. So again, the monitoring service is really like an alert service. Like say, hey, if you think of a restaurant, the capacity is only 85, and right now we're at 80, but you get another 10 people, we cannot allow them in. So and then alert goes out to you to say either tell people to go somewhere else or open up another room so you could address the capacity issue from there. So it's kind of my high level way of kind of explaining it. So now let's look and talk about internet and embedded appliances. So we're going to look at internet and embedded appliances. They play a different role in networking. Let's compare key components like a proxy server, spam gateways, a load balancer. I kind of alluded to a load balancer in my previous slide. Legacy system and IoT, which is Internet of Things. Just think of Internet of Things as your phone or any device that is connectable to your network, your fridge, your washer and dryer, anything that your security system. They're all Internet of Things. And so let's talk about first a proxy server. Proxy server acts as an intermediary between clients and other servers. It's going to provide a level of anonymity, or as a security and content filtering. It's going to enhance basically your network performance and controls internet usage. So again, from a conceptual perspective, I kind of have a screenshot of what that looks like. You could enter, for example, FTP or SFTP detail. You could enter your proxy details, and then you could actually test your FTP settings. Again, these are just things that are embedded within the system itself. So moving on to spam gateway. So a spam gateway filters unwanted email before it reaches the user. So you could set up protocols and different things to basically say, Paul, this might be addressed to me, but this is, Dr. Paul Morrison. You may have won money somewhere in, some far off country, right? And then but I could set up filters to say things like that. It shouldn't reach me. So it protects me from not only phishing attacks, but it's going to reduce clutter from my email box. So again, we'll get into, I might have covered this in some of my other courses, but phishing attacks and other things will hopefully I've covered it somewhere else. I definitely have covered it in the videos for sure. Load balancer. So a load balancer distributes incoming network traffic across multiple servers. It's going to ensure no single server becomes overwhelmed. That's what I was talking about the monitoring piece. It's going to optimize resources and improve application availability. So if you're able to distribute the performance or the load that your service is getting, then that's going to help make sure that you're able to have optimization, and it's going to improve the application availability from that perspective. Legacy systems. So these are basically outdated computer systems still in use. Windows Server 2000X, whatever that is, right? Or Windows 3.1. I mean, they're often required special handling and integration into the modern technology, really to maintain functionality and security. Now, you might say, well, why don't you get rid of these systems? Sometimes it's not as easy to do that because some of these systems do things so well that nobody really wants to untangle the web. So you tend to just keep putting band-aids on it until someone says, okay, we're going to take this on and untangle it. We're going to put the money and the resources to kind of get it done. So most major companies are always struggling with this. The goal is to get rid of them, but again, the goal is to also do no harm. So my recommendation is bite the bullet. Do whatever you need to do, because these legacy systems is just technical debt, security debt that you're carrying. You got to get off those systems and make sure your environment is secure. Now you can put them in VLAN, you could put them in DMZ, you could do some things to isolate it, but again, at some point you have to move into new technology. So enough on that. Internet of Things. So again, I kind of talked about that before. Internet of Things. Services connect everyday devices to the internet, enabling more monitoring control. Again, such things as smartphone, industrial automated system, healthcare, anything that you could connect from that perspective. All right, so let's get into a little bit of troubleshooting. What are some of the things you could do with troubleshooting, as you will have to troubleshoot the network? So effective troubleshooting ensures reliability from your network performance. There's some methods we'll get into as it relates to wireless connectivity, wireless issues, and voice over IP issues. So when you're thinking about troubleshooting wireless connectivity, to troubleshoot wired connect issues, start by checking your physical connection. You might say, oh, well, why would we do that? You would be amazed of things that are not plugged in, efficiently, cables that have been chewed on or just worn. Or someone's cleaning and they pull it out, but always start there before you start looking at anything else. Is everything connected right? Is all the plugs up to date? Is everything good to go? Once you've done that, then verify that network devices like switches or router are powered on and functioning. Again, may sound very silly, like, well, of course they're on, but you'll be surprised. Then you also want to use network diagnostic tools to identify and resolve any configuration issues or any hardware faults. I would recommend, if you see anything on a test, but even in general, please start here. Make sure things are connected. Make sure your cables are not worn down, and make sure things are actually plugged in and physically turned on. You could have a power outage. Sometimes when you have a power outage, things don't, start as it should be. Again, I travel the country a lot. I've worked in some places that power just goes out, rolling blackouts, especially in Latin America and some other places in Asia. You just get blackouts, and then things start again. So again, just some feedback from experience from there. So then now we want to look in and talk about speed issues. So when you're addressing network speed issues, again, first check the bandwidth intensity of application of device causing the congestion. You want to test the connection speed using online tools. You want to ensure the network hardware such as routers and switches are up to date and configured correctly. And then you want to adjust for quality of service settings to prioritize critical traffic. Again, some of your applications may be, especially if it's a popular application, you're just hitting bandwidth issues, and you may need to widen the bandwidth. So again, those are just some of the areas you want to look in. Again, from an exam perspective, there might be questions related to that too. When we're moving on to wireless issues, you want to troubleshoot wireless issues by checking the Wi-Fi strength and the coverage. I covered early on 2G, 3G, etc. That could have an impact. You want to ensure the router and devices are not experiencing interference with other electronic devices. You want to make sure you're updating your firmware on your router and your drivers are connected correctly. You want to verify the correct wireless settings and security protocols are in use. So again, these are some of the areas you want to look at from a troubleshooting perspective. Right now, let's move over to voice over IP. Again, for voice over IP issues, you want to confirm that the network supports the necessary bandwidth for voice traffic. You want to check for any network congestion or high latency affecting your call quality. You want to ensure that the voice over IP devices and software are correctly configured and up to date. You want to use QoS settings to prioritize voice over IP traffic over other type of traffic. This is very important. Again, conceptually, I'll cover other training courses and get into some of those details a little bit more, and I think I covered it on the video too. Now you want to also move on to troubleshooting limited connectivity. So to troubleshoot limited connectivity, first start the network device. You want to check IP addresses and settings. You want to ensure the device is obtaining an IP address from the DHCP server. You want to verify that the network security settings are not over restricted. You want to inspect your network hardware for faults as well as test connectivity with different devices from there. All right, there's some questions I like to just always follow up with at the end of the chapter. What is the role of file and print servers in a network? Again, it could be a CompTIA question. Again, I've taken the exam twice. I've seen variations of this, but in every chapter, every lesson in my wrap up, make sure you're always taking multiple tests from CompTIA and go to their website. They change their exam questions. Not a great deal. It's still the same question, just worded differently, because as I said in other chapters, they may ask the question, what is the internet? Well, again, the internet is the internet, right? That's not going to change, but they do try to break it up as well as try to not trick you, have you think a little bit clearer about your answers to make sure you understand the material. So I sometimes say trick because sometimes it's what I feel. It's my own personal opinion, by the way. So file and print servers manage and share files and printers across a network. Centralize resources to make them accessible to multiple users. This setup ensures efficient data handling and reduces the need for individual printers and storage, enhancing collaboration and resource management. What are the key functions of web server? A web server are critical for hosting websites and web applications. They process incoming network requests over HTTP and HTTPS, and serve web content to users, ensuring the web pages are accessible, reliable, and efficiently delivered to the browser. What is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP, and why is it important? HTTP is the foundation of data communication on the World Wide Web, which is true. But again, I need to add the S for security. It defines how messages are formatted and transmitted, and how web servers and browsers should respond to various commands. HTTP enables the fetching of resources such as HTML, documents, images, and video. What role do mail servers play in network communication? Mail servers handle the sending, receiving, and storing of emails within a network. They manage email communication, ensuring messages are delivered efficiently and securely between users. Common protocols used by mail servers include SMTP, IMAP, and POP3. What is the purpose of network monitoring servers? Network monitoring servers track, analyze network performance, ensuring optimal operation. They collect data on traffic, detect issues, alert administrators to potential problems. This is proactive monitoring. Basically, this proactive monitoring helps maintain network reliability and security. Again, a lot of these things I've covered and explained if you go back to previous chapters. Glossary of terms, again, this is more of a definition, review, and understand. I'm not going to read everything here, but understand what a file print server is. Network basic input and output systems, NetBIOS, web server, hypertext markup language, hypertext protocol, secure web server development. Continuing on, mail server, directory and authentication servers, remote terminal access, network monitoring servers. Again, I did cover in detail. Again, understand what these glossary of terms are, study them, keep them handy. All right, thank you as always. Any questions, like I said, please email me. I'm open to coaching sessions if you need be, one-on-one on any material that you feel that you're struggling with. Please schedule time with me. Happy to cover these concepts with you and go over them. All right, thank you, and take a break for today, and we'll pick it up tomorrow.